The phone's harsh ring sliced through the darkness at 3:17 a.m. David Miller fumbled for it, his heart already racing before he was fully awake. No good news ever came at this hour. The voice on the other end was clinical, detached. "Mr. Miller? This is Harbor Memorial Hospital. Your ex-wife, Sarah, has been in a serious accident. She's in surgery now. You're listed as her emergency contact, and possibly her last hope." David sat bolt upright, the sleep evaporating from his mind as memories of Sarah, their marriage, their bitter divorce, and the 3 years of silence since, crashed over him like a wave. But there was something else too. Despite everything, she had kept him as her emergency contact. And now, somehow, he was her last hope. If you're feeling that pull to know what happens next, what choice David makes and how this middle-of-the-night call changes everything, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that explore the complicated bonds that tie us together, even when we think they're broken beyond repair. David's hand trembled as he set the phone down. The bedroom of his modest two-bedroom apartment was bathed in the blue glow of his digital alarm clock. 3:19 a.m. He ran his fingers through his disheveled hair, trying to process what he'd just heard. "Dad?" David turned to see his 11-year-old daughter, Emma, standing in the doorway, her stuffed rabbit clutched against her chest. Her long brown hair, so much like her mother's, was tangled from sleep. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice small in the darkness. David forced a smile. "It's fine, sweetheart. That was the hospital. Your mom's been in an accident." Emma's eyes widened. "Is she going to be okay?" "I don't know yet," David answered honestly. "But I need to go to the hospital. Can you get dressed quickly? Mrs. Patel next door will stay with you until I get back." Emma shook her head firmly. "No. I want to come with you." David hesitated. He and Sarah had worked out a careful custody arrangement after the divorce. Emma spent weekdays with him and weekends with Sarah. They communicated only through terse text messages about logistics. The arrangement was cold but functional. He hadn't seen Sarah face to face in over a year. "Emma, honey, hospitals aren't good places for kids, especially in the middle of the night." "She's my mom," Emma said, her voice stronger now. "Please, Dad." David looked at his daughter, really looked at her, and saw the determination in her eyes. She was growing up so fast. He nodded. "Okay. Get dressed. Warm clothes." 20 minutes later, they were in David's aging Honda, speeding through the empty streets of Millfield. The town was eerily quiet at this hour, streetlights casting long shadows across the pavement. Emma sat silently in the passenger seat, staring out the window. "Dad," she finally said. "Why did they call you? I thought Mom hated you." David winced at the bluntness of children. "Your mom doesn't hate me, Emma. We just couldn't make things work between us. But we both love you very much." "Then why don't you ever talk to each other? Why does she make that face whenever I mention your name?" David gripped the steering wheel tighter. How could he explain the complexities of adult relationships to a child? The slow erosion of trust, the painful arguments, the final betrayal that had ended their marriage? "Sometimes," he said carefully, "people hurt each other without meaning to. And then it becomes hard to be around each other without remembering that hurt." Emma was quiet for a moment. "What did the hospital say? About Mom?" David swallowed hard. "Not much. Just that she was in an accident and needed surgery." He didn't mention the nurse's other words: "She's lost a lot of blood. We need a direct donor. Her blood type is rare, B negative, and our supplies are critically low. Our records show you're a match." The truth was, Sarah needed his blood. Literally. The irony wasn't lost on him. Harbor Memorial Hospital loomed ahead, its windows lit up against the night sky. David parked and led Emma through the sliding glass doors of the emergency entrance. The antiseptic smell hit him immediately, bringing back memories of Emma's birth in this very hospital 12 years ago. Sarah had squeezed his hand so tight he thought his fingers might break, but he hadn't minded. They had been so happy then, so full of hope for their future together. At the reception desk, a tired-looking nurse looked up. "Can I help you?" "I'm David Miller. I got a call about my ex-wife, Sarah Miller. She's in surgery." The nurse's expression changed. "Mr. Miller, yes. Dr. Patel has been waiting for you. I'll page him now." She looked at Emma. "Is this your daughter?" David nodded, placing a protective hand on Emma's shoulder. "There's a family waiting room on the 3rd floor. Why don't you head up there? Dr. Patel will meet you." The elevator ride was silent. Emma leaned against David, and he could feel her trembling slightly. He wished he could shield her from this, from the harsh realities of life and death, but he knew that wasn't possible. Sometimes the best you could do as a parent was simply be there, standing beside your child as they faced the difficult truths of the world. The waiting room was mercifully empty. Emma curled up in one of the vinyl chairs, her knees pulled to her chest. David paced, unable to sit still. His mind raced with questions. What kind of accident? How bad was it? And why, after everything, had Sarah kept him as her emergency contact? "Mr. Miller?" David turned to see a man in scrubs standing in the doorway. His dark hair was covered by a surgical cap, and he looked exhausted. "I'm Dr. Patel. Thank you for coming so quickly." "How is she?" David asked, his throat tight. Dr. Patel gestured for David to follow him into the hallway, away from Emma's ears. Once they were alone, the doctor's professional demeanor softened slightly. Sarah was in a car accident. A drunk driver ran a red light and hit her vehicle on the driver's side. She has multiple injuries, including internal bleeding. We're doing everything we can, but she's lost a significant amount of blood. The nurse on the phone mentioned I'm a match, David said. Dr. Patel nodded. Yes. Sarah has B-negative blood, which is quite rare, less than 2% of the population. Our blood bank supplies are critically low after a multi-car pileup on the interstate earlier tonight. We've requested emergency transfers from other hospitals, but they won't arrive in time. A direct donation from you could make the difference. David didn't hesitate. I'll do it. Whatever she needs. Dr. Patel looked relieved. Thank you. I'll have a nurse take you to get started right away. The donation process will take about an hour. My daughter. I'll have someone stay with her, Dr. Patel assured him. A child life specialist is on call. As they walked back into the waiting room, Emma looked up anxiously. Is Mom okay? Dr. Patel crouched down to her level. Your mom is very strong, and our best doctors are taking care of her. Right now, your dad is going to help us by giving some blood that your mom needs. Is it okay if my friend Lucia stays with you while he does that? Emma looked at David, who nodded encouragingly. It's okay, Em. I won't be gone long. A young woman with a kind smile appeared in the doorway. Hi, Emma. I'm Lucia. Would you like to come with me to our special waiting room for families? We have books and games, and I make a mean hot chocolate. Emma hesitated, then nodded. She gave David a quick hug before following Lucia down the hall. As David lay on the donation bed, watching his blood flow through the tube, he couldn't help but think about the last time he'd seen Sarah. It had been at Emma's school play last year. They had carefully arranged to sit on opposite sides of the auditorium, exchanging only the briefest of nods. Emma had played a tree in The Wizard of Oz, and they had both beamed with pride, separately. How had they reached this point? Their love story had begun so promisingly. They'd met in college, he was studying engineering, she was in pre-med. Their first date had been at a tiny Italian restaurant where the owner kept bringing them free desserts because he said they looked so happy together. They'd married after graduation, supporting each other through David's first job at an engineering firm and Sarah's grueling medical school years. The problems had started when Sarah's career took off just as David stalled. The small engineering firm he worked for closed, and he struggled to find a new position. Meanwhile, Sarah was offered a prestigious residency at a hospital in another state. They'd argued bitterly about whether to move. In the end, Sarah had stayed for him and Emma, but resentment had festered. She took a less prestigious position at the local hospital, working long hours. He eventually found work as a high school physics teacher, a job he grew to love, but which paid far less than his previous position. Money problems, different schedules, growing resentment, the classic recipe for marital disaster. And then came the final blow. David had discovered text messages between Sarah and a fellow doctor, messages that suggested an emotional intimacy that she no longer shared with him. When confronted, Sarah hadn't denied it. "I didn't physically cheat," she'd said, "but maybe I wanted to. Doesn't that tell us everything we need to know?" They'd divorced soon after. The proceedings were surprisingly civil. They both wanted what was best for Emma, but the emotional wounds ran deep. David had dated occasionally in the 3 years since, but nothing serious. He told himself it was because he was focused on Emma, but in his more honest moments, he admitted that he was afraid of being hurt again. And now here he was, literally giving his blood for the woman who had broken his heart. "All done," the nurse said, interrupting his thoughts. She removed the needle and pressed a cotton ball to his arm. "You did great. This will help her tremendously." David sat up slowly, feeling slightly lightheaded. "When can I see her?" "She'll be in recovery for a while yet. Dr. Patel will update you when there's news. In the meantime, drink this juice and eat something from the snack tray. You need to replenish your fluids and sugar." David obediently sipped the apple juice and nibbled on a cookie, though he had no appetite. His mind was on Sarah, somewhere in this same building, fighting for her life. When David returned to the waiting room, he found Emma curled up asleep on one of the couches, a hospital blanket tucked around her. Lucia sat nearby, reading a book. "She's a wonderful girl," Lucia said softly as David approached. "Very brave. She told me all about her science project on butterflies and how you helped her build the habitat." David smiled, looking down at his sleeping daughter. "She's the best thing in my life. She mentioned that her mom is a doctor here." David corrected. "Sarah transferred to Riverside General about a year after our divorce. It's about 30 minutes from here." Lucia nodded. "That explains why some of the staff didn't recognize her name. I should get back to my other families, but the nurses know to call me if you need anything else." After she left, David sat beside Emma, gently stroking her hair. The waiting room clock showed 5:42 a.m. Outside the windows, the sky was beginning to lighten, the stars fading as dawn approached. David felt exhausted but knew sleep was impossible. His phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Patel, their elderly neighbor, checking if everything was okay. He quickly replied, explaining the situation and thanking her for being willing to help. Mrs. Patel had been a godsend after the divorce, often watching Emma when David's teaching schedule conflicted with Sarah's hospital shifts. At 6:15 a.m., Dr. Patel returned, looking even more tired than before but with a small smile on his face. "She's stable," he said, and David felt his knees go weak with relief. "The surgery was successful. Your blood donation made a critical difference." "Thank God," David whispered. "What happens now?" "She'll be in the ICU for at least 24 hours for close monitoring. She has a broken leg, 3 broken ribs, and a concussion, along with various cuts and bruises. The internal bleeding was our biggest concern, but we've managed to control it. She's not out of the woods yet, but I'm cautiously optimistic." "When can we see her?" She won't be conscious for several hours due to the anesthesia and pain medication. I'd suggest you take your daughter home, get some rest, and come back this afternoon." David looked at Emma, still sleeping peacefully. "You're probably right. But could I just see her? Just for a moment?" Dr. Patel hesitated, then nodded. Briefly. "Follow me." David carefully extracted himself from Emma, making sure she was still covered by the blanket, and followed Dr. Patel through a maze of corridors to the ICU. Outside a glass-walled room, the doctor stopped. "5 minutes," he said firmly. "She's heavily sedated and won't know you're there, but sometimes familiar voices can be comforting on some level." David nodded and stepped into the room. The sight of Sarah took his breath away. She lay motionless on the hospital bed, connected to various machines that beeped and hummed. Her face was bruised, a cut above her eyebrow neatly stitched. Her normally vibrant auburn hair was dull against the white pillow. She looked smaller somehow, vulnerable in a way he'd never seen her. He approached the bed cautiously, as if afraid to disturb her. After a moment's hesitation, he gently took her hand. It was cool to the touch. "Hey, Sarah," he said softly. "It's David. I don't know if you can hear me, but you're going to be okay. The doctors fixed you up. Emma's here too, she's sleeping in the waiting room. She's so brave, just like her mom." He paused, watching the steady rise and fall of Sarah's chest. "I don't know why you kept me as your emergency contact after all this time. Maybe it was just an oversight. But I'm glad you did. I'm glad I could help." A nurse entered quietly to check Sarah's vitals, giving David a sympathetic smile. "I should go," he said, reluctantly releasing Sarah's hand. "But we'll be back later. Emma will want to see you." As he turned to leave, he thought he felt the slightest pressure from Sarah's fingers, but when he looked back, she was still unconscious, her face peaceful in sleep. The drive home was quiet, Emma having woken up just enough to walk to the car before falling asleep again in the passenger seat. The morning sun cast long shadows across the road as David navigated the familiar streets of Millfield. His mind was a jumble of emotions, relief that Sarah was stable, lingering fear about her recovery, and confusion about his own feelings. At home, he carried Emma to her bed, removing only her shoes before tucking her in. She stirred briefly. "Is Mom okay?" she mumbled. "She's going to be fine," David assured her. "Get some sleep. We'll go back to see her this afternoon." In his own bedroom, David changed out of his clothes, which still smelled of hospital antiseptic. He should sleep, he knew that, but his mind wouldn't quiet. Instead, he made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, watching as the neighborhood came to life outside his window. Mrs. Patel was watering her flowers. The Henderson kids were waiting for the school bus, backpacks slung over their shoulders. Normal life continuing while his had been turned upside down in the span of a few hours. His phone rang, startling him. It was a number he didn't recognize. "Hello? David? It's Michael. Michael Chen." David frowned, trying to place the name. "I'm sorry, I don't." Sarah's colleague at Riverside General. "We met once at Emma's birthday party a few years ago." The memory clicked into place, a tall, soft-spoken doctor who had brought Emma a science kit as a gift. "Right, of course. How did you get my number?" "Sarah has you listed as her emergency contact. The hospital called me as her department head, and I wanted to check how she's doing. I would have gone to Harbor Memorial myself, but I'm in the middle of a 36-hour shift." "She's stable," David said. "The surgery went well, but she'll be in the ICU for at least a day." Michael sighed with relief. "That's good to hear. Sarah is, she's an incredible doctor. The patients love her. The staff too." There was something in Michael's voice that made David ask, "Are you and Sarah friends?" Michael said quickly. "Good friends. She's been a mentor to me, actually. She helped me through a rough divorce of my own last.